Ballerina. Or as it's called in the US, Leap. Maybe you haven't thought of this, but there is a bit of a hidden relationship with animation and dancing that people aren't immediately aware of. Not necessarily with ballet, just any form of dancing. Of course, there is that old cliche of the ending dance that Shrek started, and if that film is a musical, the characters have to show some moves with their songs, but when you think about it, many of the most memorable scenes in animated films have characters dancing in some form. The party in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the ballroom dance in Beauty and the Beast, the time for hot chocolate in the Polar Express, the list goes on. The closest thing that had animation and dancing ultimately work together for one big project was back in 2006 with Happy Feet, which ended up getting the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. But now that ballet is taking center stage in an animated form, will it be a dance worthy enough for the opera? Or did the animators accidentally design the characters with two left feet? Let's find out. The story. Admittedly, the story does have some good ideas. It is possible that at first glance, it could seem rather preachy about achieving your goals, like if this movie were directed by Shia LaBeouf.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
In actuality though, once the characters make it to Paris, the message flows smoothly with the story as we look into Félicie's journey to becoming a real dancer at the Paris Opera Ballet. In some sense, it is more of your typical dreamer's tale about training and working hard in order to achieve the main character's goal, along with following some of the tropes. But even the execution on that part does make it engaging to see this girl unleash her passion to fully become a dancer. Although it can have its sense of comical tone, which honestly doesn't really work, it remains rather serious and more whimsical for the most part as the audience witness how she's sharpening her skills for the ballet. This is why some parts of the script turned out to be rather solid, and is capable of focusing to tell a plot that hopes to be some source of inspiration for people to follow their own dreams.
Do you think it was stupid to come to Paris?
Don't say that! We should never give up on our dreams.
However, like I said before, this movie does contain some old cliches, and the side plots are nothing but that. Whenever the movie tries to explain something outside of Félicie's experience at the Paris Opera Ballet, things start to step down and it's harder to grab audiences' attention because they're either easily predictable, like the relationship between Félicie and Victor, or it's just barely looked upon with little significance to the main story, like what happened to Odette before she became a cleaner with a limp. It's trying to be the kind of story that's more about the characters, but it fails to do so because they're the weakest aspect of the feature, which I'll get more on that later. It doesn't hit all of its marks well, but I'm rather impressed how it can nicely develop a story about following your dreams. The animation. Out of all the elements of this film, the animation is supposed to be the biggest selling point, since, like I said at the start, this is all about the dance. Luckily though, this movie did manage to deliver visually. Let me just get to the weaker parts out of the way. It is true that it can be interpreted as your average looking animated feature. Like, it doesn't do anything special with the production design by giving us just turn of the century Paris with little use of color that could grab people's attention to the screen. And the character designs are fine as they are, but it doesn't seem to hold any sort of artistic touch that would have this movie look more unique. All I'm saying is just the biggest criticism in the animation is just that it visually doesn't stand out from the crowd. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get into the best part here, the character animation. This is exactly why the big credit should be given more to the animators than the actors, because those are the people who really made Félicie's journey so fascinating to watch. Interestingly enough, the movie uses keyframe animation with the help of real Paris Opera ballet dancers Aurélie Dupont and Jérémy Bellingard in order to execute the choreography. In fact, many of the memorable moments from this feature come from the dance sequences, whether it be with Odette's training or inside the opera house as we see her progress. As for the style of animation, it's definitely clear that it's trying to go for a more realistic approach. The movements are supposed to be presented like how real ballet dancers move, the proportions on the character's anatomy don't go too extreme, and the setting is, well, like I said, meant to look like France without adding anything new like from a different perspective, or how it's like a paradise to Felicie. But even with that, if there's anything that gave a good performance here, it's certainly the animation. The characters. What keeps this movie away from being anywhere in the levels of great is by how weak the characters are, since a lot of them end up underdeveloped and not even that likable. I mean, sure, the film spends a lot of time on Felicie as we see how her high spirit and optimism is what drives her to follow her dream. But then we also end up with characters like Victor, who is Felicie's friend and tries to be in love with her. He also tries to have similarities with her by pursuing his own dreams to be an inventor along with being the comic relief, but he ends up being more obnoxious than anything. Others that should have more time to look into who they are, but somehow don't, include Odette, the cranky caretaker who ends up being the trainer, Marante, the strict teacher that Felicie's trying to impress, Camille, the bratty diva that's a lot like Miss Piggy but a lot more annoying than amusing, and Regine, the villain of the film that's trying so hard to take down Felicie and make her daughter Camille to be the star. If you want to know why, well, how can I put this? I think the film might have explained it for just a quick second, but it didn't do a good job to clarify her reasons. I know that I discussed about some of the parts that were really done well, like the choreography on the animation, but at the same time, there are also other parts that do make this film a bit hard to sit through. If the characters being underdeveloped aren't bad enough, the voice acting here is just terrible. Maybe other factors can play here, like how the lip sync is a bit off or how the dialogue was written badly, but it's pretty hard to find any actor here that puts in any sort of effort in their work. Like, listen to Felicie and Victor.
I call them chicken wings!
Chickens don't fly.
Would you believe me if I say that they're supposed to be kids that are around 10 to 12 years old? This isn't just a factor of choosing the wrong actors. It's more about not choosing actors that can act. See why the animators need more credit than them? At least those guys can do their freaking jobs properly. Hey guys, now before I continue, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a clarification about my screening of Ballerina or Leap or however you would like to call it. Because the thing is that the version that I saw was the English dub of Ballerina. Now, I know that some of you might be thinking, well, isn't the English dub of Ballerina called Leap? Well, yes and no. You see, Leap is actually the American version, since that one was actually distributed by the Weinstein Company, while everyone else outside of the United States would get the English dub of Ballerina, or at least if they want to get an English version of it, it would be Ballerina. Now, the big difference between Leap and Ballerina is actually with the voice cast, and that is why I kind of paused this review right over here. Because in Leap, since it was distributed by the Weinstein Company, they actually brought in some more recognizable names, including Kate McKinnon, Mel Brooks, and Nat Wolff. And that pretty much explains why that in my viewing, when I saw the English dub of Ballerina, that one felt like the entire cast was just a whole bunch of amateurs. And it makes me feel a little bit envious to those who actually saw Leap, because they actually got some actors who would know how to give out an entertaining performance like Kate McKinnon and Mel Brooks. Now, keep in mind though, I did still get some recognizable names in the English dub of Ballerina, like Elle Fanning and Carly Rae Jepsen. But again, their acting, at least in this movie, is just terrible. It was just so dull, it's just unprofessional, it's just really not that good, and it really did damage the viewing experience that I had with this movie. So overall,
That's why I pretty much paused this entire review, just to give you guys a little bit of that kind of explanation. It's just to give you my perspective on my viewing of Ballerina, just in case if watching the English dub of Ballerina would be a little bit more different than watching Leap. So with all that said, sorry to interrupt, and I'll put you guys back into the review. So here we go.
This could have been a fantastic feature if it weren't for the characters and actors being just awful. You won't get a true spectacle like something you get out of the Paris Opera Ballet, but this is still a decent show on its own. Ballerina, or Leap, has the potential to be a strong animated feature with a well-crafted story about pursuing your dreams and impressive animation that presents some great choreography. However, due to the poorly executed characters and the bad acting, it really took off a lot of substance from this film to become something that would be just okay. If you're a fan of ballet or interested in dancing, then maybe you could consider giving this a watch. Other than that, it wouldn't hurt to rent it to see a nice example of reaching your goals. Also, if you ever do decide to watch this, please see it in any other language than English and put up the subtitles if you need to. At least that'll spare you from one flaw. I've definitely seen a lot better than this, but I would lie to myself if I said that I didn't come out of this rather pleased.